personification. Check it out. To each and every nation. Bang, 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 bang. Check out the real situation. No, no, no. Check out the you know star. It's all about the love inside your heart. Sing, bless somebody through the act of a good. Love inside your heart. Put a little food into the pot to somebody who's in need. Love inside your heart. Don't bow down to envy and greed. Just be wise on the road to vanity. You never ride in let love be your guide. This one is dedicated to you know who you are. We see you every Friday night down at the bar. You are stand up and a gun like you's a big superstar. Don't define who you are by your house or your car. Not the money in your pocket or the bling around your neck. It's not the job you have or the size of your paycheck. It's not about possessions or the things where you collect. It's honor, integrity and respect. It's all about the love inside your heart. Sing, bless somebody through the act of a good. Love inside your heart. Put a little food into the pot to somebody who's in need. Love inside your heart. Don't bow down to envy and greed. Just be wise on the road to vanity. You never ride in let love be your guide. We see some youth nowadays don't wanna work but be the boss. Them get caught up in the style and the swag and the class. Them say them happy happy. All right. How y'all doing today? Man, I gotta put some DC Black History out because I'm seeing some stuff that's going online that's wrong. Okay, I mean it's just flat out wrong. Nobody black ever owned any slaves in DC. See, let me start this over. Okay, see, DC started with the 1790 Residence Act. That's when Maryland and Virginia gave George Washington some land. And that land could only be 10 square miles. In that was Georgetown, Alexandria, Washington City, and Washington County. And each jurisdiction had their own rules and regulations all the way up until 1871. So if you lived in Georgetown, even though you were part of DC, you had different rules than if you lived in Washington County. Washington County was like Anacostia and the suburbs. Washington City was downtown DC. That's the only place Benjamin Banneker surveyed was Washington City. Now, they had a 10 o'clock curfew in Washington City, Georgetown, and Alexandria. And what that meant was, if you were black and you were free, you were caught out after 10, you were given a $5 fine. If you didn't pay that fine, you got 6 months in jail. If you were black and you violated curfew, they gave you 40 lashes. Now, from the very beginning, you've had free and enslaved black people in Washington, D.C. from the very beginning, okay? And what they did was this. How they knew the difference. If you were free before 1835, you had to have 3 white people to vouch for you and put up a $50 peace bond. After the snow riots of 1835, that 3 white people went up to 5. That $50 peace bond went up to 500. Now, there was a time in DC when the only thing a black man could do was be a hacker, taxi driver. And if you go back and look in a lot of the major cities,
There are a lot of prominent black people right now whose father had a job and drove a cab. He was a hacker. Okay, this is all we could do. All right, now because the curfew was in Washington City, Georgetown, and Alexandria, all of the juke joints were in Washington County. That's where you could go party if you were black. Was in Washington County because they didn't have a curfew. All right. Not only did they not have a curfew, but Washington County was more rural than Washington City, Georgetown, and Alexandria. Okay? All right? So you could hide out. See, this is the thing that I want people to realize. See, even though DC was a part of the South, it was not as harsh as the South. It was against the law for black people to get an education in DC. Okay? It was against the law for us to get an education, and it was against the law for us to carry a gun in Washington, D.C. See, when we joined the Union Army in 1863, when Lincoln finally approved for black men to be able to join the Union Army, we had to go out to Roosevelt Island to train because it was against the law for us to carry a gun in D.C. Okay? It was against the law. All right? So consequently, regardless, man, because I got a young lady, and she don't know no better. She deals with Georgetown, and what happened in Georgetown, she want to plaster it all over the city. And that wasn't the case, man, because Georgetown, Alexandria, and Washington City, they each had their own rules and regulations. See, because slavery was so profitable in Washington, D.C., in 1845, Alexandria retroceded back to Virginia. That's why we got our funny little shape, because Alexandria retroceded back in 1845. Okay? But in 1871, that's when they took Georgetown, Washington City, and Washington County and made it what we now know as the District of Columbia. That's when the whole city became a line. That's why when you're driving in the city, in certain sections of the town, you can be driving on the street and look up, and you on a total different street and didn't even turn. And the street that you was on will pick up a block over. Okay, this is how they had to reconcile the streets when Washington City, Washington County, and Georgetown. See, because Georgetown was predominantly alley living. Let me say that again. See, in Georgetown, it was predominantly alleys that they live in. See, wherever we could get in, we fit in. And what the developers did with Georgetown, first thing they did was outlawed alley dwellings. You could no longer live in an alley. They outlawed that, and then they started enforcing housing codes. Well, when they started enforcing housing codes, now you got black families that can't afford the fines, and developers are knocking on their door. Hey, you want to sell? I know you got this fine. Let's make a deal. And that's how they got black folk out of Georgetown. They outlawed the alley dwellings, and they started enforcing housing codes. Okay? And so they pushed all of the blacks that was in Georgetown, pushed them to Foggy Bottom. See, and see, and that's another thing, man. Each area had their own nickname. See, that's something a lot of people don't realize. See, the Underground Railroad was nothing but a code system. And if you was coming to DC back in the day, man, I tell you, man, go to Heron Hill or Good Hope, because rarely would you see a Georgiaman in either one of those places. What I just said was, if you're trying to hide, go to Georgetown or Anacostia. Georgetown was Heron Hill. Good Hope was Anacostia. Because rarely would you see a Georgiaman who was a slave catcher. That was his nickname in DC, the Georgiaman. Okay, everything had a nickname. The Underground Railroad. Right now, you have more black people in 2022 that know each other by their nicknames than they do their real name. If somebody come up and say, man, you know Don Foley, who? Don who? Oh, Top Hat or Truth Conductor or whatever my nickname may be. Okay? So get out of the notion. I mean, I had a young lady was saying that some man, black people brought each other out of slavery to stay together. That's not true, y'all. That's not true. Okay? See, slavery was designed to be permanent through the status of the mother. So when we had churches and the Loyal League and all of the other black organizations, the first person they bought out of slavery was always the woman. Because when they freed her, they freed generations. Okay? Now, to prove a point, right in Lafayette Park, you had a lady by the name of Alethea Browning Tanner. Tanner. Alethea Browning Tanner had a fruit stand in Lafayette Square in front of the White House. Thomas Jefferson was one of her clients. She bought 19 people out of slavery from that fruit stand. And one of them people she bought out of slavery was her nephew, John F. Cook Sr. See, when you were free in D.C., before 1835, you had to have 3 white people to vouch for you and put up a $50 peace bond. After the first race riot in D.C., which was the snow riots of 1835, that 3 white people went up to 5. That $50 peace bond went up to 500. Literally, somebody white could come and take your papers and sell you into slavery, and you had no right to defend yourself. Solomon Northup, 12 Years a Slave, happened right here in D.C. And if you look at that movie, the whole gist of the movie was getting a message back to a white man. Man, come get me. They done sold me into slavery. Now, what about all them blacks that weren't successful to get a message, come get me? They done sold me into slavery. See, we got some of the most jacked up bloodlines of any race of people. No wonder we so damn confused. Because we don't know where we came from. A lot of us don't know our bloodline. Because we had to take the example. Let me give you an example. Back in 2016, Georgetown University had to admit in 1838 they had to sell 272 slaves to stay afloat. Oh man. See, I'm trying to break off some knowledge, man. Get out of here with that little dick energy, okay? All right? So I mean that's a whole neighborhood. So once they sell you into slavery, your name is not the same. You're gonna take on a new name. So your bloodline, you don't carry that name no more. You got the name of whoever they say you are. And that now becomes your bloodline. And see, and that's the problem in the black community. So many of our ancestors have had to take on names that were in our bloodline. We don't know where our bloodline is. Man, you got black folks that are related, probably married to each other. Okay, because they don't know their bloodline. They don't know their true bloodline. See, this is the thing. We had to take on the name of whoever our slave master was. In whatever family, when they sold all them people down to Georgetown, took them all down to New Orleans. See, DC was the pipeline for New Orleans. Man, in fact, Franklin and Armfield was the biggest slave trader on the East Coast. Their office was right over there in Alexandria. It's still there today. And if you go to Whole Foods, that's on Duke Street, right across from Whole Foods, there's a brick building. That's where the prison's set. And there's a statue of the Edmondson sisters, who were on the Pearl Affair of 1848. Okay, so now your dick is too little, man, to be related to me. I see. You hung around just enough for me to get you, buddy. Yeah. No, we ain't related. You a little fish, buddy. We ain't nowhere related. No, sir. I ain't taking you on. No, you ain't even in my family, brother. You a little fish. So take that little dick energy on somewhere else. But let me show y'all something. See. We don't. We didn't have no rights. I keep telling y'all, man. Right now, white America is stuck in the mindset of the 1850 Fugitive Slave Act. Let me say that again. Right now, white America is stuck in the mindset of the 1850 Fugitive Slave Act. Just like black folk are stuck in the mindset of welfare, getting something for nothing. We stuck. See, slavery was designed to be permanent through the status of the mother. If that mother was enslaved, everything she birthed, even if she was raped, was a slave. Well, what's predicated on the status of the mother now? Welfare. That woman can have as many babies as she wants. Long as that man ain't in the house overnight with her, the federal government say, black man, I'm gonna take care of them babies. But then society will turn around and say, black men don't want to be fathers. But the federal government is telling the black man, just don't be in the house. I'm gonna give them welfare. So now you got generation on top of generation that's stuck in the mindset of something for nothing. Slavery. That's why they keep getting the Democratic vote. Because the Democrats keep giving them something for nothing. It's just that simple. It's just that's just it. That's why the Democrats got the black vote, because they give them something for nothing. And they're enslaved. And a lot of black folk don't know. The Democratic Party was the party of the KKK. Let me say that again. See, a lot of black people don't know that the Democratic Party was the party of the KKK. Black folk were Republicans. They weren't Democrats. They were Republicans. Okay? It's just that simple, man. In some kind of way, we done got. I got somebody ask, where do I get my information from? I own the business, motherfucker. That's where I get it from. I own the business because I had to do. Man, when I first started, let me tell y'all. When I first started my tours, I had my tours on Viator.com. Man, in fact, um, let me show you. Let me show y'all. Let me show y'all. Let me show y'all the picture. I had my tours on Viator.com, and I went to them jokers, and I asked them. I was at the time, man. I was the only black tour in DC on their website, and I asked them what did I have to do to get in the algorithms? Because I'm sending people to them. I want to show y'all this. I'm sending people to them. And the lady got indignant. She made some smart ass crap that I didn't think was funny. So I said, take my stuff down. But Mr. Folk, no, take my tours down. And when she took them down, I had to honor what was already in the pipeline. Then I didn't even have a website at that time. That's when I developed DCBlackTours.com. Okay? And man, I gotta tell you, when I started reaching for independence, when I wanted to be my own boss, not having to depend on a white company to for my business, that's when I fell behind, man. That's when I fell behind. It's just that simple. You know, when you know when I no longer book my tours through a white website, you know, somebody say, why don't I run for office? Man, politicians, that's a 24-hour a day job, man. You don't want to be no politician, dude. That's a 24-hour a day job. 24-hour a day, 7 day a week job. Politician. You ain't never off as a politician. All right? Okay? You ain't never out. You ain't never off as a politician. You always at work. So uh when I was on Viator, I was promoting the first tour I created, the DC Underground Railroad tour, was the tour that I was creating, and um, from that, I went to the DC Black History Night tour. That's how I started, man. And see, all of my signs, all of my marketing, if you really pay attention to it, I only promote myself. I market me. I'm either marketing me or my company, Truth Conductor, truthconductor.tv, or DCBlackTours.com. Okay? All right. So that's what it, what it, and see, now I want y'all to remember something. See, so just like we had Alexandria, Georgetown, Washington City, Washington County, we now have Northeast, Northwest, Southeast, and Southwest. And out of the four quadrants, we have 8 wards from Ward 1 to Ward 8. Ward 7 and 8 are the two poorest wards in the city. That's where, if you're looking for anything under $500,000 or less, those are the last frontiers of affordable housing in DC. Is Ward 7 and 8, and that is Southeast, a little part of Northeast, and Anacostia. Okay, that's what. And matter of fact, Marion Barry, who I ran for mayor against in '94, was the last council. He was the council person of Ward 8. Okay, all right. So yeah, you really have to you and see. Here's a crazy thing. In Virginia, you had a black code that said if you were bought out of slavery and you didn't leave within a year, they had a right to sell you back into slavery in Virginia. That was a real black code. You had sundown codes, which means when the sun go down, nigga, don't be caught in town. See, this was a reality. I told you, we had a 10 o'clock curfew. You better not be caught on the street. Man, in fact, it was so bad in DC, if more than 7 black people at one time couldn't congregate on the streets of DC. That's because they didn't know who was who. See, they didn't want the free black slaves giving the enslaved black people. Now, you really weren't free. You weren't free because they could walk up and take your papers and sell you into slavery. And see, under the 1850 Fugitive Slave Act, see, the first Fugitive Slave Act, I think 1792, they didn't really enforce that. See, under the 1850 Fugitive Slave Act, that's when the government had to get involved in returning enslaved people back to their owners. See, that's when the 1850 Fugitive Slave Act is what made the federal government. See, you could no longer, before the 1850 Fugitive Slave Act, see, you could go into a free state and they were passing laws so you didn't have to go back. See, in Pennsylvania, the capital was there 4 times, once in York, once in Lancaster, and twice in Philadelphia. See, when the capital was in Philadelphia, every 4 months, George Washington was rotating his slaves. Because if they were there after 6 months, they were automatically free. See, that's how Pennsylvania was set up. If you came to Pennsylvania as an enslaved person and you stayed there longer than 6 months, you were automatically free. You see, look at the story of Ona Judge. Ona Judge and Martha Washington was just like this. Ona Judge was sold to Martha Washington's granddaughter. They in Philadelphia. Ona Judge is slipping her clothes out the door. And one day, see, let me explain something to y'all. When you ran away at night, you had to do your running around midnight when everybody in the bed. See, you had 6 hours, man, to put as much distance between you and wherever you running from. And if you were with Harriet Tubman and you want to turn around and go back, you're dead. She would kill you. The Underground Railroad is gay. most successful organized crime this country has ever seen. Let me say that again. See, it was against the law for black folk, for white people, man, under the 1850 Fugitive Slave Act, if you white person was convicted of helping a slave get to freedom, that was treason. You know what that means? Okay? That means you broke. Okay? You dead. Yeah, I am broke, man. I am broke. Free of that non-focus, still broke. He won't work. Hey, man. So obviously, I must have some kind of spell over you for you to be sitting right up in here every time I go live, you right up in here. So if I'm such a bad person, why are you here? Why you up in here if I'm such a bad person? See, this is the stuff you don't get. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm begging. I serve a good God. I don't have to beg, dude. I serve a good God. I don't, I don't have to beg. My God is good. That's how I've been able to survive this long. Because I serve a good God. Okay. All right. It's buffering. Amen. maybe the internet bill is due. My internet bill is due. You know, so they trying to come on, man. You got to get some money in here to us, cause I ain't gonna be able to do nothing till another day or so. So anyway, hey James, go on take the little dick energy somewhere else, man. Will you please? Just cause you a slave. Listen to me, y'all. The penitentiary is the only place where slavery is still legal. That's the only place, man, where slavery is still legal in the pen. Okay? And look at how our young boys got to go to jail and be a slave to come out with some street cred. Okay? I mean, look at. Oh, connection is bad. All right, let me. Let's see here. We can't get this working. Why? Why? Why can't I get this working? How come I can't get it working? Why can't I get this working, man? Work. So let's turn this off. Anyway, I was on Instagram, so it ain't working right. So so hey man, I'm gonna get ready to go down to the White House. This is Sharon. I'm sharing Revelations. Okay, I'll look him up. Look him up. Okay, I'm gonna look him up. Yeah, I'll look him up. I got him. I'll check him out. So this is, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to see with DC. Okay, every jurisdiction up until 1871 had their own rules and regulations. Okay, and I think this is why, right, even to today, you got people that were born in Southeast DC and they never left. Everything they need is in Southeast DC. They can tell you nothing about Northwest, Northeast, or Southwest, and we ain't 10 square miles. Okay, right? We ain't 10 square miles, and they couldn't tell you nothing about the other three quadrants of the city because all they know is Southeast and seeing in DC. And I'm sure it's this way where you are. Whenever development is coming your way in DC, the first thing they do is bury the power lines. Man, I can't do you. I can tell you ain't got nothing on your mind, man. Okay, so why don't you go on, bro? Go on, man. Pay my internet bill then. That's what you can do since you complain about it. Like, pay my internet bill. Give me cash app up for some money. You know, it's funny you want to sit here, you know, and oh, why don't you come down to the house and join me? You come down there and join me, because that's what I'm headed. That's what I'm headed to the White House. Right. I'm headed down to the White House. I'll be sitting down there today. Sure, it's gonna be 50 degrees. Beautiful day today. It ain't as cold as it's been. All right? It ain't as cold. So, okay. Don't worry about it, man. Once you get a job, man, you go get a job. Take that little dick energy up out of here, man. We don't need that. Okay, that little dick energy. Just okay. Go on, man. Go on. Take that little dick energy on somewhere else. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is what we have to look at. And DC is all. See, here's the thing that was unique about Washington D.C. If you were enslaved, um, see, here's the thing about uh, D.C. If you were enslaved, you could hire yourself out. But you work 7 days a week, man. 6 days you give to your slave master. And 7 you can keep for yourself. And that happened with Philip Reed. See, there's a statue that's on top of the Capitol called Freedom. Freedom faces the east because it will always see a day begin, but it'll never see a day end. The Italians didn't want to tell the Americans where the seams were because they wanted more money. Philip Reed was an expert artisan with metal. He was a slave. He was paid $1.25 a day. Everybody else made $1 a day. That's how good he was. He was paid $1.25 a day. He worked 7 days a week. 6 days he had to give to his slave master. He worked on the statue. First of all, he figured out how to hoist up freedom so the seams could be exposed and it could be broken apart and taken to the foundry. And the mold could be cast. And by the time he got freedom up on top of the Capitol, Lincoln had signed the Emancipation Proclamation at $1.25 a day. 1 day a week. For a little over a year, he made a cool $41.25. And back then, that was a lot of money. Okay? That was a lot of money. Right? So that was an example of when you and see this is how the white commissioners of the city kept white labor in check with free and enslaved black labor. And if you notice, when you go down southern big cities, you don't see a lot of white people, especially white men, because they didn't want to compete with free and enslaved black labor. Okay? The snow riots of 1835 started out at the Navy Yard because the white workers went on strike and it didn't work because the free and enslaved black labor didn't participate. That's how the snow riot started. Okay, so listen, man, you're gonna have a lot of people that will give you some information that might not be necessarily correct. I had a young lady was I corrected on. She said, "Well, why don't you ask a DC historian?" I said, "DC historian was my first tour guide." See, my first tour guide was a DC historian, Harry Jones. May he rest in peace. Died in 2018. Okay, that was my first tour guide. That's my foundation. That's how what's going on. That's how I learned what I did. What time is it? Look, man, I get ready. I'm gonna go down to the White House, y'all. But I thought I would just come on here and give you some black history. And maybe I do this every day. Tell you some stuff about DC that you need to know. All right? Okay? So thank you very much.